to another baby theater in the dark. Today we're going to be talking about Joe the Mummy. You see, many mummies are from very long ago. Ancient Egypt, King Tut, ancient kings and queens of amazing stature. But one mummy is not such a esteemed guest. You see, Joe the Mummy is much more new. In about the 1800s, Joe was just an average guy. Joe was quite a rare name at the time, but what he lacked for in his name, well, he gained in friendship. Well, one day Joe came upon quite a lavish little pyramid. Now, one might say, where would he stumble upon one of these? But the strangest part was it was in his basement. He traveled down into the basement, and one day he scratched off a little bit of a brick that had been a little dusty, and suddenly the bricks fell down. The whole wall caved in, and when Joe realized what had happened, he quickly regretted coming down into the basement. But soon he peered down below a cavernous, deep cave. Well, he couldn't stand but explore it. He traveled for quite some time, and still in disbelief as he surpassed the first hour, and he realized he was still walking down, down, down. So finally, his battery was starting to die on his lantern. And battery, as to say, the fire. He realized that there was a pyramid ahead. The oil began to leak a little out of his lantern, and it seemed to be nothing at first, but yes, it was part of the curse. The pyramid curse. Now, Joe was just an ordinary man. Again, restating the obvious. So, the one thing that he had that he could never part with was his robe. A simple robe, yes, but a robe just the same. Now, the unfortunate part is, as the robe drained, its oil from it mixed up with the lantern's oil. Well, the fire started pretty quickly and swiftly, and his robe went up in flames quickly, without even a blink of an eye. Now, the sad part about this is those were his only robes. So he stood there, naked and alone, standing before a pyramid with his lantern nearly going out. Now, he began to run backwards, back to the basement. And the one thing he kept thinking was, my robe. No, my robe. It's missing. I must find my robe before it's too late, and the robe cannot be found. Now, he finally made it back to the basement, but not before he peered down at his little pinky toe, and his pinky had a small little sliver of cloth. Now he said, "Ah, my robe, it must be near, because the cloth is calling to me." Well, he knew it was near, but it was not in the same form that the robe had been in, because the robe had been burnt to a crisp. However, this random cloth made him scratch his head and wonder if the robe had still been there all along, watching him, waiting for the opportune time to wrap itself around him again and become his robe. Now, I would say that this is insane talk, but he was very superstitious. He is the most superstitious person around. Now, that is to say, he was super. He sat down and he began to pull at the small cloth at his toe. Yet it began to delve through deeper into his skin, ripping the flesh. Now, this was quite strange, as his robe had been destroyed in the fire, but what is this cloth then? Well, he noticed as soon as he started to pull, the pain became unbearable. And he noticed a small cloth around his index finger. Now, it seemed like it was spreading. "Ah, my robe," he said. "My robe, it's back. It just is taking its time." I see. The robe is taking its time. Okay, well, to each their own. So, the robe began to wrap slowly around each finger and around each toe until all his toes and fingers were covered. Now, some say that Joe probably should have seen a doctor, maybe even called in a priest or a witch of some kind to relieve him of his pain. Yet, you don't know, Joe. You don't understand that his robe is his life. It meant everything to him. Joe. He filled up his lantern with oil, made sure to repair the small leak, and traveled deeper into the pyramids. Again, it took him about an hour, but by the time he ended up peering over the massive pyramid under his basement, he realized that his entire legs were wrapped in cloth, and his entire arms were as well. Even the lantern seemed to glow with rope and robe cloth. Now, obviously, Joe was ecstatic. He was so excited to see the robe, what he thought was the robe, what was truly the curse of the mummy. Now, because of the mummy, sometimes these things happen, and it's mostly because people aren't supposed to go delving into where they're not supposed to be. But this one in particular, well, it was actually a strange disease. So it wasn't necessarily a curse at all. I mean, purely medically, it could have been cured with just a small bit of penicillin. But, alas, Joe didn't know that. And penicillin really hadn't been invented yet anyway, so. But, I'm sure there was some kind of leaf or something he could have rubbed on it. Maybe it would have fixed it. Who knows? So, he tried to walk through the pyramid and find what he needed. And all he found was more rope. More cloth wrapping around him. Now, it was all throughout his body at this point. And the one thing he kept thinking was, wrap me up, robe. Now, the strange thing about this curse, disease thing, is it didn't really stop there. It continued. It progressed. And soon it wrapped around his head. Now, Joe, being a mummy, began to look at his choices. And he thought to himself, he said, is my robe really worth this much? And his answer was a resounding yes. It was worth every moment, because now he was wrapped in his robe forever. He took step into his pyramid, and then he realized he had been a mummy all along. He'd been there for years. It was Joe who had not been the mummy. And Joe wasn't even there. His name was Hagen Duggan Basimida. It was amazing. He remembered everything now. And he realized that he was standing in someone's basement. As he climbed the stairs with eerie precision, he came to the top of the stairs and opened the door. And it turned out it wasn't 1800s. It was 2022. And he's in your house right now. Did I say basement? If you don't have one, I meant the back door, or the attic, or wherever. Whatever door is most closest to you. He's coming for you. Don't you hear his moans? Don't you hear his moans? There he is. He says hi. Oh, never mind. That's not Joe. That's just Joe Mama.